Sustainability in Healthcare, a satellite event in conjunction with the National Climate Governance Summit 2025. I'm Professor Dr. Ina Ismiati Sharifuddin, a senior consultant anesthesiologist and a passionate advocate for green and sustainable practices both in healthcare and in everyday life. Today, I have the honor of moderating today's important conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee, National Climate Governance Summit 2025, for giving us the opportunity to the Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Malaya, to host this satellite event, and Sustainable Development Center for your support throughout this event. This forum is part of our collective commitment at Universiti Malaya and Green at UMHealth, Faculty of Medicine, to embed sustainability into every layer of healthcare, from leadership to daily practices, from partners to education. I'd like to thank all of you, the audience who had taken time off to join us in this very important discussion, whether you're in this room or joining us online. I've been told that we have those joining via the summit streaming, and we also have those from Facebook. Last but not least, we have those from YouTube. So today's session, ladies and gentlemen, will feature a series of panel discussion from esteemed speakers across academia, clinical practice, and industry, all united by a shared vision to create a greener, more sustainable future for healthcare. Before we begin our series of panel discussion, allow me to briefly share the agenda for this session. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the program. In the meantime, if you're joining us online, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box at any time, and we will answer it at the end. For those who are here in this hall, you are warmly welcome to come up to the microphone during the Q&A session to share your questions and thoughts. So, without further ado, let us start with the first speaker. Our first speaker is my dear friend, Professor Dr. Shireen Enna. She will address the topic of elephant in the room, how healthcare impacts the environment. Before I pass the stage to Prof. Dr. Shireen, let me introduce her to all of you. Shireen is a firm advocate for sustainability in surgery. She is the founding head of Green at UMHealth for Sustainability in Healthcare, Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Malaya, and the founding head of sustainability at Universiti Malaya Medical Center, working to integrate sustainable practices into clinical services, education, and research. She also advocates for sustainable surgical practices nationally and internationally in her role as Honorary Secretary of the College of Surgeons, Academy of Medicine, Malaysia. As a pediatric surgeon and clinical researcher, Shireen's work has focused on outcomes, care provision, and the transition of care, particularly for the patients with congenital abnormalities requiring long-term follow-up into adulthood. Without further ado, let's welcome Prof. Shireen.
Thank you very much for this opportunity today. And I just wanted to say that just attending the various sessions at the summit over the past 2 days, I was, first of all, it was a bit of a strange experience because I was the only doctor in the room, a medical doctor in the room, and it was very interesting for me to learn from so many other people who are so committed to sustainability. But at the same time, it was also an opportunity to share our perspectives from healthcare. So today I know that I'm speaking to probably two different audiences, a healthcare audience, as well as those in the sustainability sphere. They are not necessarily in healthcare. So I will show this bar chart here, and I think you'll immediately divide into two groups. One group will know what this means exactly, and one group will be like, what is that? Why so many colors, right? That's a very colorful PowerPoint. And probably in the first group will be those who have already been doing sustainability for a very long time. And the second group probably, I think, is going to be a lot of healthcare workers, because that's my experience. So what does this mean? This is actually a chart showing annual global temperatures from 1850 to 2024. And it is compared to an average of temperatures taken over the period of 5 decades, sorry, 1961 to 2010. And this is attributed to Professor Ed Hawkins, University of Reading, right? And often when I speak to healthcare professionals, when they see this, that's when it suddenly switches on. On the left of the screen is 1850. On the right of the screen is last year, right? And according to WHO, last year was the first year where average global temperatures were 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Actually, I think it was 1.6, so exceeded 1.5 degrees, right? So we know as healthcare professionals that the environment impacts our health. We have loads of data on that already. We have decades of data on that. Increasing temperatures, natural disasters, rising sea levels, air pollution, we know all that causes infant, neonatal mortality, maternal mortality is increased, the risk is increased. There is a pressure on our trauma services in natural disasters. There are relocation of populations because of rising sea levels, and it very much affects ASEAN nations because many are made up of island nations and we have extensive coastlines, right? So this is indisputable. As healthcare professionals, we know this. But I also want to say that healthcare itself has a carbon footprint. Healthcare contributes, really depends on which studies you're looking at, which countries you're looking at. So I think the global average is about 4.9%. But every time I see a new study come out, it seems to creep up. So it can be anywhere from 5 to 8% as well, especially in high-income countries. It's more than aviation and global aviation and global shipping combined, right? If healthcare were a country, it would be the 5th largest emitter on the planet after China, the US, India, and Russia. And again, it was one of those things where when I speak to someone that's not in healthcare, I've had responses from good friends that they say, oh, hang on, isn't healthcare itself sustainable? And then this is part of that education process where actually, no, we have a carbon footprint as well. My slides not moving well. Okay, so now quite a lot of work has been done by this organization called Healthcare Without Harm. And this is a graph extrapolating what happens with healthcare sector greenhouse gas emissions if it's business as usual. So basically, of course, our emissions will just continue going up. And then what happens if we make some progress in line with whatever governments have committed to worldwide since 2017. And that was the Paris Climate Agreement in 2016. And then what further gains we can get if we follow this particular roadmap for healthcare decarbonization, right? And then uncharted territory, right? But really what this shows is that if business is as usual, our greenhouse gas emissions will just continue to escalate. Now, I understand that many sustainability people will understand exactly what the terms mean, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, you got it right back of your hand already, but many healthcare professionals actually have no clue. Yeah. So I want to actually show integrate the two, right? So educating healthcare professionals what these various scopes mean, but also educating our non-healthcare sustainability advocates here about where our emissions come from. So scope 1 are emissions from sources that an organization owns or controls directly. So in a hospital, that would be the fleet of ambulances, for example, that we may have, our security guards sitting around the hospital. That uses up fuel as well, right? Secondly, scope 2 emissions that a company causes indirectly, where energy, and that depends on where the energy is purchased and used and where that is produced. So basically that's our electricity bill, etc., right? And scope 3 is really a huge scope, and that's the emissions that are not produced by the company, not the result of activities from our own assets and from up and down the value chain. Now, what does that mean for a hospital? UMMC, our hospital, had 1.16 million individual patient visits last year. Right, Prof. Nazira? 1.16 million individual patient visits. Every one of those patients emitted carbon when they came to the hospital and left, right? We buy syringes, we buy pharmaceuticals, we buy surgical devices, we buy anesthetic devices, we have radiology, all that goes into scope 3. So for any hospital complex, that is really by far the largest scope. And this summarizes some of it. So scope 1, that's in the top there, right? Pretty small, 17%, and then scope 3 is the largest, right? And scope 2, down at the bottom. So there was a systematic review of the carbon footprint of healthcare settings. And what they found was scope 1, pretty much combining various papers together between 10 to 30%. Again, depending on where you're getting your, how you're using up the energy in your area, how many assets you have, how many cars, vans, buses, ambulances you have, right? Scope 2, difficult to calculate, but scope 3, consistently the highest scope in any hospital or healthcare complex. So looking at Japanese healthcare, just examples from around the world. Japanese healthcare, you can see also that these are various ways that we contribute to carbon footprint: medical services, household medication, fixed capital, nursing services, right? Don't forget that the hospital complex isn't just in the hospital. We may have outreach services. We're sending maybe some therapists, nurses, rehab, right? Sometimes with palliative care, sometimes we make visits. So that is encompassed into a healthcare complex. This is in Germany, 5.2% of their emissions come from healthcare, right? And you can see so many things: 500 liters of water, imaging in German hospitals, 13 million CO2 emission equivalents a year, right? Catering, you can see catering, 18% of a hospital's carbon footprint. And you can imagine that would be the case, because it's not just catering for events, workshops, seminars in an academic hospital like ours. Patient diet every single day. Every patient admitted in this hospital has food provided to the patients, and they don't finish all of it. So again, back to healthcare professionals, what do we know? We need to know some terms that we talk about frequently: carbon footprint, which is an objective measure of the quantity of greenhouse gas emissions emitted into the atmosphere by an individual, organization, process, product, or event. And this is measured in what they call carbon dioxide equivalents. So basically, you have a number of greenhouse gases in a hospital. That would be, say, anesthetic gases. Nitrous oxide is very commonly used, right? Those are translated into a CO2 equivalent, which is basically, well, for that similar amount of CO2, how much global warming it can lead to. Yeah. Another term that we frequently use: life cycle assessment. So these are life cycle stages, which include raw material extraction, manufacture, transport, use, reprocessing, and disposal. So basically, when something is born until something dies, right? So for instance, if you're talking a plastic syringe that we use all the time, every ward, every area in the hospital, it's when it starts from before that plastic syringe appears, right? It starts from where we get the plastic from, where we get the packaging from. And then how do we dispose of it? Where do we dispose of it, right? That's a complete life cycle assessment. A lot of it depends on where you are. So for example, if we are producing, let's say we're mining, producing, and disposing in our country, the life cycle might have a lower carbon footprint because there'd be no transport. But if you are getting metals from South America, if you are manufacturing in Europe and then you're shipping to Malaysia and then you're disposing in Vietnam, you can imagine that life cycle changes. The carbon footprint of that life cycle changes very much. So the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality spoke about these various things that we should focus on as a healthcare complex: energy, transportation, pharmaceuticals, etc. Right? But again, this is just to consolidate where our carbon footprint comes from. Now, some examples, and of course, I'm going to talk about the operating theatre because I am a surgeon and this is the area that I know best. The operating theatre is the most resource-intensive area of a hospital, and it contributes anywhere from 20 to 40% of a hospital's carbon footprint. Why? Imagine an operating theatre, the air conditioning is always on. You can't turn it off. Why? If you turn it off, temperature goes up, humidity goes up, surgical infections go up. So we can't turn off air conditioning, right? So that's one. Sterilization processes that when we use an instrument, it has to be clean, it has to be sterilized, and it needs to be repacked and sent back to the operating table, right? anesthetic gases, fluid management, so many areas, right? But this is why it's a very resource-intensive area of the hospital. Another resource-intensive area is actually the ICU. So, and we must also remember basically for any patient that goes through surgery, the carbon footprint doesn't start just when we put the knife on the patient. It actually starts way before, when we are investigating the patient. When a patient comes to see you in the clinic, you send back in for investigations. More often than not, you can't get every investigation on the same day. So if we order 3 things, an X-ray, an ultrasound, and a CT scan, that's 3 different trips patients making to get that done, right? Blood investigations, transfusion, cross-match, right? So all that contributes to a carbon footprint of a single procedure. And then, of course, there's the surgical procedure itself, the energy, the waste that's generated, hand disinfection, our surgical linens, single-use devices. And then, so a comparison was done, laparotomy versus laparoscopy versus robotic surgery. So for the non-healthcare professionals, laparotomy is your regular surgery where you get this cut in your open wound in the abdomen. Laparoscopy is keyhole surgery. And then, of course, what everyone's very excited about is robotic surgery, but you can see robotic surgery actually contributes nearly double the carbon emissions of your standard laparotomy. Now, this is also another example of where our carbon footprint comes from, and we were just chatting earlier today about this. So I, as a surgeon, will get device companies coming and showing me various devices, and one day someone came to me and said, I've got this beautiful new device. So as an aside, we often reuse our instruments until they cannot be reused anymore, right? Because they're so expensive and so beautifully designed that we keep reusing them until they really can't be used. And what happens is that we disconnect the cable, we sterilize them in different ways because they have electrical components, and then we put the cable back in again so that we can reuse these instruments. And the device company came to me and said, look, we've redesigned our instrument. It cannot be reused anymore because it's become unibody. So you spend a few thousand ringgit because these things cost a few thousand ringgit, and it's used once and thrown away, right? And this is part of what causes our carbon footprint. So single-use items contribute 2/3 of carbon footprint products used in common operations, and at least, for example, single-use gowns, patient drapes, instrument table drapes. Anesthetic gases also, right? So they have a very high global warming potential, and there are many initiatives to kind of slow down, even reducing the flow of these anesthetic gases means that you waste less, more is used in the patient, less is wasted, and that's how you reduce the carbon footprint of any single surgery. Inhalers. Many of you may not have an operation, but I'm sure many of you either use inhalers or have seen someone use an inhaler, or there's an inhaler in your house. One aerosol inhaler, very common, right? You see this everywhere. One aerosol inhaler has the same carbon footprint as driving up to 170 kilometers in a gas car. Right? Did we know that? Yeah. Yeah. And this is because many years ago they used to have CFCs, right? And then okay, CFCs are bad for the environment, bad for our ozone layer. So they moved to actually hydrofluorocarbons, but these are also a global warming potential. So 175 miles is, this graph says London to Sheffield is basically KL to Taiping, okay, right? But look at this, changing the type of inhaler you use could reduce your carbon footprint as much as becoming vegetarian. Wow, right? So now, I want to say here that healthcare, we always have to balance a few things. Safety is always paramount. Patient safety is always paramount. What is right for the patient is always paramount. For example, I'm not saying that everyone should go back to having a laparotomy because it has a lower carbon footprint, because that's not really the way to go. There are many benefits to having laparoscopy, obviously. And in the same way, we have to make the right decisions for our patients. But imagine you factor this into the decision that you make for your patients. There's definitely a lot we can do, right? So dry powder inhalers may not be suitable for maybe younger patients, but can very much be suitable for adults who know how to use it. Medical imaging, sorry, Prof. Yang, you don't get away. Yes, so medical imaging, radiology has a huge carbon footprint as well. So where do these emissions come from? Energy use, because if any of you have been to the ultrasound room, to the CT scanner, the MRI scan, it's always kept very cool because the machines heat up, right? But the machine's heat is energy use. Keeping it cool is energy use, right? There's also a lot of waste disposal because we have diagnostic and interventional radiology procedures. There's a use of finite resources, including helium and iodine, and one MRI scan, 83 kilometers. So depending on you, north, south, east, KL to Rimba, KL to Tanjung Malim, KL to Karak. Okay, one MRI scan. Yeah. So that again, there's a lot of movement in the radiology specialty to really look at where we can strategize to reduce the environmental impact. Say this, and this is just an example for an MRI scan. The other big thing in radiology is AI. Right, so radiology has been one of the specialties that's really taken AI on board because it can run through so many scans and very accurately. But it is a double-edged sword because we all know that AI itself has an environmental impact because of the use of energy, water in running the data centers. Of course, AI can be a very useful tool in reducing our environmental impact because it can make us much more efficient, right? But this is something that, again, we're not saying don't use AI. What we are saying is that use AI, understanding where it can be used well and not well. And then finally, waste. So waste also contributes a huge part to our carbon footprint. And you can see here that 33% of total hospital waste comes from DOR. This is in the US. Closer to home, UMMC, in just 7 days, we produced more than 12,000 kilograms of clinical waste. Imagine 12,000 kilograms in 1 week, clinical waste. Clinical waste is biohazard waste. Actually, non-clinical waste is 85% of a hospital's waste production. So can you imagine if that's clinical waste, you extrapolate 85% of a hospital's waste is actually non-clinical waste, you can imagine every day how much waste we're generating. Students of mine observed 20 operations over 3 weeks. And we found that there's also a lot of this due to wrong waste disposal. So you have 40% of items in a clinical bin were actually non-clinical items, right? 20% of items thrown into the sharps bin were non-sharps. Again, lots of opportunities for correction. So I want to end with Maria. So Maria, these are in her words. Maria is an artist. And in 2019, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and surgeons had to remove her entire left breast. So all this is from Maria's website. She lives in the Netherlands. And during this process, she discovered that 60% of the surgery materials used for her operation were disposable. For example, there were stainless steel scissors flown in from Japan, used for one cut before they end up in the bin. So she asked the doctors to collect all the surgery materials used for her operation to get a clear idea of how much it really was. And she was shocked to see 6 bags full of plastic. I'm not going to play the video, but do check out this video. So she is an artist, so she was able to really effectively conceptualize, so this is how much waste my surgery for one person cost in terms of the waste generated. And as a surgeon, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why did we need, how many people were scrubbed into this theater, right? Look at all those scrub gowns. You can look at all those pairs of gloves, right? Look at all the linen that was used. This is a really powerful video that I encourage everyone to see. All right, so finally, we know that environment impacts our health, but what we want to focus in now that we as healthcare professionals know that we have a carbon footprint, how do we change? How do we focus on action? Why? If I show this to any medical student, yeah, pillars of medical ethics. Yeah, correct. Yes, medical ethics. Actually, anyone, right? You may not understand these words, but I'll turn it around, okay? Autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, okay? Medical students have to learn this. I'm not sure they completely understand what it means, right? But even if you don't know what the 4 pillars of medical ethics are, everyone knows the phrase, do no harm. So non-maleficence is do no harm. So we need to rethink if what we're doing is harming the environment, and we know that the environment impacts our health, we're actually harming our patients as well if we don't look at this. That's for healthcare workers, all right? For the non-healthcare workers, industry, everyone who works with us in some way, I want to say, help us reduce what drives consumerism in surgery, in healthcare, okay? Because there is a great push to, there's a great financial push, I would say, right? But help us to monitor ourselves, help us as our stakeholders, as patients, to also make this part of your value so that you can say, look, how is the hospital being sustainable? How is my surgical procedure being sustainable? Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge all these wonderful people who could not get this work done without them.
Thank you, Prof. Shireen, for that eye-opening presentation on the contribution of carbon footprint by the healthcare and the systemic challenges we must confront. Listening to you, I feel that keeping oneself healthy is definitely one of the best contribution we can do as individuals for sustainable practice. If all of us are healthy, practice healthy lifestyle, we don't have to go through all that investigation and all the asthmatic drugs, you know. I mean, some are given, that's, we can't fight that, but staying healthy is very important. Right, let's go to our next speaker, our dear Prof. Nazira Hasnan. It's my pleasure to introduce you an exceptional leader, Professor Dr. Nazira Hasnan, Director of Universiti Malaya Medical Center since November 2020. She stirred UMMC with strength and grace through the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis and was recently honored with the Hospital CEO of the Year 2024, awarded by the Hospital Management Asia. Definitely a true testament to a visionary leadership in healthcare. Nazra is also a senior consultant in rehabilitation medicine, and she obtained a PhD from University of Sydney in this same field. Today, we have Prof. Nazira, who will speak on sustainability at ground level, small steps, big impact for healthcare, highlighting real-world initiatives and how simple changes can drive big results in hospital settings. Prof. Nazira, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ina. I'm very honored to be here. And thank you to my fellow speakers. So I'll be just sharing with you the little efforts, but I feel has made big impact in the hospital in form of contributing to the sustainability of healthcare. So we'll go to the next. I can do this myself. Yes, I can. Okay, so what I'd like to share with you here is the 10 main focus of UMSDC Malaya Medical Center in the year 2024 as well as 2025. And in this 10 focus, we have two focus, which is focus 5 and focus 6, which specifically looks at intensifying energy saving efforts and greening initiatives, as well as increasing efforts to conserve and preserve our infrastructure and assets and optimizing use of space. And so I will focus on these two area of PPM focus for these 2 years. What I will do is I will show and share with you the initiatives done by the different departments in our hospital, namely the facilities management. I noticed that unit and facility team members are here. Thank you very much for being here. Nursing, engineering, pharmacy, dietetics, and our newly formed unit, sustainability in healthcare. And in 2023, we opted to do a voluntary Green Pass operations certification for us to have a baseline assessment for us to declare and to plan towards a more energy efficient building. So only one diamond there, but it is still a diamond, and it shows our effort at reducing the energy emissions. And we hope that by introducing our green efforts in the form of energy saving management, we will be able to improve this over time. And another one is our focus 6, which looks at space and infrastructure. So number 8, and this is referring to our PPM master plan, which is over a period of 5 years. And number 8 specifically looks at penghijauan PPM or greening of PPM. So going back to focus 5. So we have been doing the 3R market day initiatives for quite a number of years, and we have expanded it to 6R. And Prof. Ina, it is great that you are moderating this, because I have to thank you for this, because In 2022 or 2023, we had Sambutan Hari Anesthesia, the World Anesthesia Day celebration, and Prof. Ina introduced the 6R of sustainability, which evolves from reduce, reuse, recycle to include repair, refuse, and rethink. And so now, since then, we have started having our 6R Market Day, which is done every 2 weeks at Dataran Siti Khadijah, which is very central to the faculty as well, as well as the hospital. And our Department of Facilities have done many initiatives. 6R Market Day, as mentioned, separation of recycled waste at the garbage house, and launching a zero plastic bottle campaign in 2024. I've got pictures of that in the next slide. And because we have launched a zero plastic bottle campaign, and we have put in a policy where we do not allow plastic bottles at meetings, at department meetings and official functions. So we have distributed bottles to departments. We have installed water stations so that people are able to collect water. So because you can't ban things without providing an alternative, so we felt that was important. And I'm not sure what does the thing T, yeah, but it's okay. And in 2024, during Hari Pekerja or Labor Day on the 1st of May, we also distributed insulated vacuum bottles to all our staff so that they can carry their own bottles and they collect their own water. And this was also extended to members of the Faculty of Medicine as well. So I think we bought about 8,000 bottles and we distributed to everybody. And we repaired garbage bins and we provided separation bins at all levels of the hospital. And with the 6R program, our Department of Facilities have been producing handicraft from recycled material, and these are used for donations as well as selling. So, and we have our Recycling Day celebration annually, and I'm proud to say that the recent PPM Family Day, we had the concept of bring your own containers, drink containers and cutlery. And amongst the gift that we gave in the gift box was actually a food container for people to use. And this was our big launch of Sifar Botol Plastic campaign, which was launched in May 2024. And we sent out a circular to all the departments, to the whole hospital in June last year. The insulated water bottles on the right-hand corner there. And and also the details on our what was included in the campaign. Also, it wasn't 8,000 bottles, it's 6,494 bottles distributed. And so the crafts that have been produced from recycled waste, and actually today, the handbag that I'm using is also something from our facilities management, which is made from recycled, what do you call that, bags, like this kind of bags, yeah. And so from the 6R Market Day, what we have found is that the total amount of recyclable items collected throughout 2024 was 31.28 kilograms of recycled items. And with this Market Day, it's not just a Market Day where facilities management, had at the center where they collected recyclables, but they also had programs to create awareness on the 6R practices, and this has been very well received. And then so they provided a counter, and this also included e-waste recycling. And for people who do not know what to do with the old Quran and old kitabs, there's also a collaboration with an organization that does recycling for these materials. And we also work with an organization called My Cloth, which collects fabrics and clothing waste. And this is available every 2 weeks. And we move on to Department of Engineering. So if you drive past or if you walk in front of PPM, you would know, well, people would notice. No. Okay, people would notice the big LED screen. So under the LED screen is the guard post, and on top of the guard post, we have installed solar panel system. And along the guard post, we've also installed windmill power generator system. And with this setup that we have, the lighting in front of the PUM is actually generated from what we have installed here. So this is part of our efforts, small effort in integrating renewable energy system. We started using solar street lights in all the area in the hospital. Next one. And the electrical unit or Department of Engineering has also started to change our LED lightings all over PUM. So now it's about 70 to 80% of our lightings have been changed to LED. And we use high efficient air conditioning system. And the engineering department has invested in EV transport for internal use. And they also do awareness program and also road shows on how to manage energy, how to ensure that that people manage their energy well, to save on lightings and things like that through encouraging natural lighting, encouraging natural ventilation. And when discussing renovation or construction works, we also look at consideration of the use of energy friendly building materials. And we have a smart building system, and whereby the energy is being monitored and constantly, and with alerts if it deviates from the standards. And we also have smart lighting and conditioning control system, and this has started in the engineering meeting room, and we are going to expand this across. And our chiller monitoring control system is also being monitored centrally in-house. And then we move on to the initiatives by these two units, Sustainability and Healthcare Unit and Department of Nursing Department. So this was very interesting when Prof. Shireen was the one who came up with this idea to as a project with the medical students to look at surgical tray rationalization, realizing that not all surgical trays are being used in total, that there are quite a number of items that are not being used. So through their efforts, they've identified the number of surgical equipments that were not used. So, and by doing that, they had a systematic reduction in the number of surgical instruments. And this, again, we must stress that, by doing this, we ensure that we did not compromise patient safety. But what we were able to do was we were able to make a linear sterilizing tray, as well as reducing the cost of processing this unused by eliminating these unused instruments. So this is example of protomy set, and you can see that on the left-hand side, it weighs 91, a bit more than 91 kilos. And after the rationalization, it is now not 91, 9 kilos. And after the rationalization is 7 kilos. Obviously, my wish, I need corrective eyewear. And but why are we talking about this? Because, so what? The surgeons should be able to pick what they want to pick from the surgical trays, but it involves a lot of the process of cleaning and preparing the surgical sets. Is a huge mammoth effort, but from sorting and disassembly, the cleaning, and it's all done manually. You can see the photos here: mechanical cleaning, rinsing and drying, and then later inspect and then assemble again, package again, sterilization. So it is a huge process that's going on. So it is a big deal when you are able to reduce the number of instruments in a surgical set. And what we have found is that, so for the laparotomy set, after the rationalization, we were able to eliminate 31 instruments. And by doing that, were able to eliminate 1.77 kilogram and save 8,000 ringgit per set. So this is a huge, huge impact. So I came here, with the topic of small steps in our efforts. But these small steps, I believe, will culminate in a very huge effect and also outcome in our hospital management. So when we look at this, it's not just about reducing energy waste in instruments that are not used. We are able to be more efficient in our processes, and then and also we are able to reduce the wear and tear of instruments, because we are not sterilizing instruments that are not being used. And also this will also reduce the manual handling efforts that are being done by our staff, reducing the occupational strain on our staff as well. And this is also something that we have just started in August 2024. And this is to reduce the environmental impact of sterilization packaging. So just now we talk about the processes. So the end process is the packaging. So what we do is we package using the wrapping method. And so the nursing department last year proposed that we change from the wrapping method to a rigid sterilization container. And so the benefits to this is we are able to protect our instruments better. It's more environmentally friendly because it's reusable, produces less medical waste, and it supports our Green Hospital initiative. And in the long run, it's cost effective. We have to invest in buying the rigid containers, but it is cost effective in the long term. And what also happens is, because I'm not a surgeon, so I'm not quite aware of this, but what was told to me was that there's a lot of wear and tear, and because of a lot of, not wear and tear, the ripping of the package. And because of the ripping of the package, that it's got to go back into the sterilization process without even being used. So by using the rigid sterilization container, that minimizes the reprocessing work that often needs to be done. So this is the cost comparison between the rigid containers and the wrapping method. So over 5 years, we're able to save 50% of operational costs if we were to use the rigid container instead of the wrapping method. So we've just started this. It's only 10% currently. So hopefully we're able to complete this in the next 1 to 2 years. So investment is also very important. So the next one is Department of Pharmacy, the great initiatives of our pharmacy department. We're very proud of this seemingly simple initiative, but it means a lot to the environment, and it means a lot to our patients. So, but I'm also proud to share that our outpatient pharmacy has discontinued the provision of plastic bags for medications since the year 2009. However, some patients do have to carry back, boxes and boxes of medications, and it is a problem for them. For those who bring their own bags, then, it's well and good, but some do not bring their own bags. So our Department of Pharmacy decided that they will have a bag station, and we call it Bag Your Bags here. And the station itself is made from recycled items, wooden pallets, plastic bottles, plywood, and corkboard. And so there'll be paper bags that are donated and hung. Then any patient can pick up these bags to carry their medication. So for those of you who are here, for those of you who are joining us online, please, if you have all these extra paper bags, I know you do, please come and donate to us at Department of Pharmacy. And so this is the latest initiative that we are doing. So our inpatients, when they are prescribed with medication, so these medications are packed through an automated tablet dispensing and packing system. And this is packed individually according to their unit doses so that, we can ensure medication safety and that patients will receive the dose according to what's been prescribed. But most patients will have more than one type of medication and different doses. And for this unit doses are packed into pouches, and then a collection of this is then packed into a bigger plastic bag. And this plastic bag, we realize, is being thrown away, and every day we are throwing away 700 pieces of plastic bag. And can you just imagine the amount of waste that we are producing? So with this new solution, we are putting in, Department of Pharmacy has introduced pouches for these reusable bags. And the next one is Department Dietetics, which has enforced the use of biodegradable food packages, not just in the hospital, but also in all the cafeterias, our food vendors in the hospital. And so the other one is we've adopted, Prof. Shireen, the guideline on sustainable and healthy food ordering in PPM, and all our vendors will have to follow by June 2025. And this is towards the last two slides, I think. So I think our biggest effort in 2024 was to present to the board on the formation of a new unit. So, and thank you very much, Prof. Shireen, for agreeing to be our champion. And so we have formally launched our unit Kelestarian Kesihatan, or unit for sustainable healthcare. So we hope that through this unit, we're able to do more. But if you look at the WHO definition of what sustainable healthcare is, it is more than just the work of Prof. Shireen's unit. It will require a whole hospital and a whole UMHealth approach, because we need to look at prevention like this. What you said, Prof. Ina, we need to keep ourselves healthy so that we don't have to, we don't have to come to the hospital. But of course, our practices will need to be looked at to ensure that by using digitization, by using automation, and this will all, and making our processes very lean, introducing telemedicine, all that will reduce the carbon footprint in the hospital. And finally, so this is what we need to do towards a green PPM, adopting green practices, going towards sustainable supply chains, energy efficiency, digitalization, automation, and education, Prof. Young, and also community outreach, which is already what we are doing. And of course, we need to have our partners with the industry, and as well as NGOs and organizations out there. And these partnerships have got to be innovative. So I'd like to acknowledge Prof. Shirina, Puan Anissa, Puan Salawati, Puan Nur Azrida, Dr. Rokia, technologist Azman from engineering, and General Hidayat for helping me with the materials today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Nazira, for that informative talk. It is really wonderful to see all the initiatives that have been conducted in PPUM. And I have to say, we are very fortunate to have a very strong support in greening the healthcare in UMMC under your leadership. To create the awareness and to push for this agenda among our healthcare professionals, I believe a top-down directive is paramount. Now, let's shift to the industry's role. Please welcome Mr. Graham Rice. Mr. Graham Rice is an Englishman who has made Malaysia his home for over 25 years. He born in Middle East and raised in the UK. He brings a diverse background to his professional journey. Since joining B. Brown in 2015, he has held the position of Vice President and Head of Procurement for the Asia Pacific region. In addition to his role, he has been instrumental in advancing sustainability initiatives within the company. Recently, Mr. Rice transitioned to a newly established position as Vice President of Sustainability for B. Brown in Asia Pacific. In this role, he is dedicated to implementing sustainability strategies, policies, and programs that reflects B. Brown's commitment to social responsibility and environmental sustainability throughout the region. He will speak on a win-win situation, partnering with industry for sustainable healthcare, and show us how public-private partnership can catalyze meaningful change. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Salamat pagi, and thank you very much for inviting me to join today's meeting. I would like to share on behalf of B. Brown some perspectives. And to start off, I will just comment that as a supplier to the hospital, we are your scope 3. So we play a role in that 71%, and I will share how we're tackling some of those topics. Now, B. Brown. Actually, I'm very proud to work for B. Brown because I can declare that sustainability is and has been a company value for decades. We're a family-owned business, and Ms. Brown, the current CEO, will remind you that the values of sustainability is ingrained in what we do. And as a family business, I observe that the way that the company makes decisions is very much with future generations in mind. So that's a context, if you like, that I wanted to position B. Brown in this conversation. We are also a technology company or a med tech company. So we invest heavily in the technology side of medical healthcare with our vision to improve patient and healthcare around the world. So that means that we invest in innovation, we invest in efficient manufacturing processes, and in sustainable healthcare. Now, what does that mean? And this is the perspective that I want to share. In my role as the head of sustainability for Asia Pacific, it's very well to say that sustainability is a company value. But how does that play out? What are the structures? What are the processes? What are the lead indicators? How do we organize ourselves to live, if you like, and report on the topics of sustainability? So I picked a few of the indicators that we use that are part of our published sustainability goals, just to illustrate how that plays out. So one of our key goals is to reduce CO2 emissions by 50% for scope 1 and scope 2 by 2030. Maybe not as aggressive as some, but it's a commitment that as a company we've made. We're up to a little over 11% since our baseline year. And what I will also proudly share in Malaysia is we are one of the biggest contributors to our CO2 reduction from the factory that we have in Malaysia. So we have a big factory in Penang that employs 7,000 people here in Malaysia, making surgical equipment, elastomeric pumps, intravenous catheters, and pharmaceutical solutions. And we, thanks to Tenaga, we're able to access green energy, and we've driven a lot of energy efficient projects across our site in Penang and around the region. So we are proudly one of the biggest contributors to that reduction, and hopefully on track to meet our commitments to 50% reduction by 2030. Also, I mentioned as having spent much of my career in procurement and much of my time in procurement here in Malaysia and working to develop global supply chains that that have been able to source materials and products from here in Malaysia and around the Asia Pacific region. We've spent a lot of time and effort to do the due diligence on our supply chain around how our suppliers operate and how they support us. So things like modern slavery topics and so on come up in those discussions. So we've been very actively trying to assess and mitigate risks that we see in our supply chain. So that's something that we're very active on as well. If we look at some of the other initiatives, so I won't go through all of these, but you will see on the top right here, reduction in lost time accidents. Health and safety in our facilities is also a big area of focus and improvement. But if you look at the bottom left, when we started CO2 reduction activities, it's easier to look at a factory level. So we did our baseline assessment of our CO2 footprint in 2021. So we learned the language of CO2 and baseline assessments in that period. And so we're very, like I said, we're very proud in Malaysia for what progress we've been able to make in here. However, our customers, hospitals and doctors and so on, ask us, but what about the CO2 impact on a product level? So I wanted to give just one example of the impact that we've been able to make from our factory in Penang. So if you look here, this is illustrative reduction. So I've taken the numbers off because I'm not able to share those in official capacity, but I can show you illustratively. So if you look in the black columns, this is our baseline year CO2, average CO2 emissions for 2 types of intravenous catheters made in Penang. So you'll see the green bar represents the reduction in CO2 from an assessment of cradle to gate. So that what that means is that the sourcing of all the raw materials, our manufacturing processes, assembly, sterilization, up to the point that we send those to a warehouse. So it excludes, and this is where I'm interested in terms of the win-win and the partnership. We would like to work with you to say, okay, what does from gate to grave mean? Or go further, cradle to cradle. So how do we look at the assessment? How do we assess the complete life cycle of a product? So this is just illustrative of the progress that we've been able to make. For sure, we've got a lot more to do. But this represents the ability for us to purchase green energy here in Malaysia, and as a result of other energy efficiency projects that we've been able to implement. Another example, which the previous speaker was also talking about, for me, this is a product and a solution that is already available. So we should be more actively exploring how do we use the container system, the rigid container system, rather than the wrap system in a surgical system. So that's already been discussed, so I won't go further on that now. But for me, when we talk about partnering, we need to look at the, if you like, the longer term benefits of these kinds of projects. We understand that they are more capital intensive, more expensive to implement, but the payback comes with that commitment from time. I also wanted to thank Professor Shireen for inviting B. Brown to a workshop that we held a month or so ago. That was very enlightening for us. So we were able to share some of the areas of our activities with some delegates from the hospital here. And we focus around our progress on CO2 emissions, what we've been doing in sustainable procurement, and having some discussions around sustainable waste management and circularity and what they might look like. So that was, for us, a lot of fun, and we really appreciated that opportunity to share with the hospital. Here's a few photographs from that activity. But what I wanted to leave with some of the reflections or learnings and challenges that I pick up from that workshop and the general discussions. Firstly is how do we build the momentum? You know, I think there's so many problems to solve. It can be very overwhelming. So for me, it's about finding those small steps that give us the momentum and get the progress so that we build that culture and that activity. So we're very keen to collaborate on areas where we can build those steps. I also observe and realize that we are all very good at our own things. I think we like to think that we're good at the things. But what would, wouldn't it be special if you combine everything that we're all good at? And so I use the term 1 + 1 = 3, if we can be really successful. My youth was playing team sports. So I learned from playing team sports that you can get the right combination of skills and individuals together, you can be very successful. So for me, I just wanted to sow the seed that, we have skills and expertise, you have skills and expertise, somehow or other that is where we can share expertise and build the collaboration. There's a lot, I think, that can be learned. Likewise, I also think that sometimes we need to take strategic views in how we invest our time and effort and the decisions we make. So sometimes we need to be prepared to think longer term around how we do things, and green financing and so on comes up in discussions on our side. So that's just another topic to consider. Likewise, we speak about cradle to gate in the assessment of what we can influence within our own supply chains, within our own factories. But I love to open up the conversation around cradle to grave, or even better, cradle to cradle. Those are, if you like, maybe more difficult when we really think end to end. But if we understand your issues and your topics better, then the better we're able to design those into the products and solutions that we're able to offer. So that's what I just wanted to share. So thank you again for inviting me. Very pleased to share. Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't finish. I should finish. So I think just to wrap up, I've more or less said it, but for me, that extending across the supply chain, for example, if we run a waste audit on our waste activities in the factory, wouldn't it be great if we could extend that across the whole supply chain and industry, and looking at those circular solutions? And another interest that comes up, and this comes, Professor, from our discussions, if we were able to share with you, or have that discussion around what does green surgery look like, and how do we play a role in that, or green dialysis care, and so on. So those become very interesting topics. So yeah, thank you. I finished there.
Thank you, Mr. Graham Rice, for that very thoughtful, short and sweet lecture. We'd like to thank you, B. Brown, for your active support. And I do agree with you. All of us work in silos, We are good at what we do, but we need to break that barrier, right? We need to get them engaged and collaborate more. We need to collaborate with our pharmaceutical partners and equipment partners to maximize our intention to save this world. So thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now reaching our last speaker for the day. We are privileged to have our dear Professor Dato' Dr. Yang Farida Abdul Aziz. I think I don't have to talk about her more, but for the crowd out there who doesn't know, Prof. Dato' Dr. Yang Farida, she's the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Malaya, a senior consultant radiologist, and a passionate advocate of lifelong learning and progressive change in healthcare and education. She's a proud alumna of Universiti Malaya, and she has enriched her journey with global experience, including leadership development under the German Academic Exchange Service. Her dedication to medical education led her to earn a master's in medical education in 2022, a testament to her unwavering commitment to growth. She has worn many hats, most recently as president of the ASEAN Medical Schools Network and Southeast Asia ambassador for the AAHCI. In every role, she brings a vision for transformation, whether it was steering UM shift to digital learning during the pandemic or shaping national policies through the Malaysian Medical Council. Today, she joined us not only as a leader in medicine, but as a champion of sustainable change in health education and practice. She will address educating the next generation. Please welcome Prof. Yang Farida.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera, and thank you so much, Prof. Ina, for that kind introduction. And I am very happy I don't know whether I'm happy to be the last person with such eminent speakers before me, but I think we are doing this together as a collective. So I'm happy to try and bring this, to fruition. Basically, we are ending this session by advocating that we need to educate the next generation. Sorry. So I think what has been said here that there are mega trends that are going to be affecting us in health, but these mega trends also affect the sustainable development goals. Now, one mega trend is technological advances. Another mega trend is the demographic shifts to aging and super aging. Third mega trend is the geopolitical and economic shift, and we are already feeling that currently. And a fourth mega trend, very important, is inequality and disparity. And that's a very important mega trend. And the fifth is actually evolving planetary health. And while today it seems as if we're talking on our climate crisis, which is a health crisis, remember that all these mega trends are actually affecting SDG number 1, such as no poverty, SDG number 2, such as zero hunger, and of course, our own SDG, good health and well-being, and the fourth, quality education, to reduce inequalities and climate action. These are just some of the SDG that is being affected or that will challenge health. But what I want to put here to you is that we must embrace the sustainability tree of education. Starting with the roots. The roots tells us the why. What are the whys? The values and philosophy, and exactly what Graham mentioned. This sets the mindset shift. It is needed before we can even talk about knowledge or taking action. So let us talk on the roots. Steep, make it deep so that our values and philosophy in doing this is true. Then we grow into the trunk, and that's the what, the core knowledge. And this is where structured learning will begin. We then grow the branches, which are the how, and we're talking about the application and practice. And this is exactly what Prof. Nazira has mentioned, whereas in the core knowledge, I think a lot of it is what Prof. Shireen had mentioned. So in the application practice, this is where the learning translates into leadership, innovation, and action. And finally, the leaves. The leaves are our hope, which talks on the outcome, impact, and legacy. And this is where change and inspiration occurs beyond the learning. And if we do this right, we will get inculturation of sustainability. And so this is my sustainability theory of education. But we are talking about the next generation. So once we've grown all this, we then understand what are the next generation. It's our undergraduate diploma, it's our medical educationists, it's our postgraduate and postdoc, it's our specialists, nurses, it's our academic health center administrators, it's our allied health workers, it's the industry, such as Bibron, though they are into sustainability even before us, definitely. But yes, vendors, scientists, and patients, they are our next generation. And it is again what we hope these will become very green leaves, unintended, that will give us the hope, outcome, impact, and legacy. But we understand when we look at this that there's going to be different categories of next generation, different levels that they need. And these people are going to have different, they are from novice to master people, and yet you need to teach them the same thing. And they can be from layperson to experts, and yet they need to be taught on the sustainability. And there's going to be different objectives, different learning outcomes for each of our teaching exercises, different methodologies, different instructional designs. So is this going to be simple? No, it's not. But we need to do this because what we want is these sustainable next generation practitioner that has these key elements, and these elements have been mentioned by all the other speakers. So it makes my job easier. We need to grow sustainable next-gen practitioners who are eco-health literate, who understands the circular healthcare models, who are climate resilient, who has climate resilient care, who understands that we need to do this with community engagement, who will leverage on innovative technologies, and doing this because we understand that personal wellness is important, but planetary health is also important. So these are the elements that we want to have as the outcome for our next generation practitioner. So I give you the framework on how to educate the next generation. These are the elements that we should have when we're looking at education. Number one, of course, is curriculum and training. And whenever we do this, there must be institutional alignment. The institution must be invested in this for us to align with sustainability. And I'm happy to say University Malaya is invested in sustainability. We need to look at the curriculum design and how to integrate it into training. The curriculum mapping and competency development is very important because the competency that we want are going to be an amalgamation of the science and the humanistics, yeah, of the objective clinical practice and the understanding, the EQ of trying to save the planet. The faculty and professional development needs to occur. We can start with foundational knowledge. All these components need to be there, which are mentioned before: climate science and planetary health, environmental determinants of health, as what Shireen had mentioned, all the sustainable framework, which Prof. Nazira had mentioned. And there, what Prof. Nazira shared and what Graham shared was how healthcare systems need to exist to support this, and we need to teach our next generation this. Sustainable health clinical practice, green hospital initiative, climate resilient care, circular healthcare models, green leadership. We never should forget the last component of ethics, justice. Ethics and social justice. There must be teaching in climate justice and equity. Ethical decision making. Remember, Shireen was saying, we cannot say all sustainable when it increase costs to our patient. That's not fair to the patient. What we need to teach ethical decision making, and that's very important. And that includes community engagement as well as looking at carbon footprint. Global health policy and advocacy, looking at climate health policies, health resilience, and our emergency preparedness to this. As you might know, the rising temperature, are we prepared? Are we prepared for this? And lastly, and very important, whenever you do education, research, innovation, and data, implementation science, green tech innovation, impact monitoring needs to occur. So there, I shall end my lecture today because I'm done. But of course, we're not done. Because to do this, you need enablers. And these are some of enablers for universities, at least. For universities, building capacity through education, this is what we do. This is what our roles are. And every year we nurture students to do it. So I think we're in a very good position to do so. But we are also enabled by the accreditation standards of the Malaysian qualification framework that has, since 2024, made us include value-based education and sustainable development goals into our curriculum. So this is now mandated. So this enables us, for us in education, to do what we need to do. Another enabler is when we leverage digital and green technology. So in we have My Virtual Patient, which is a technology that was developed during COVID, but now we realize this is going to help us because we now no longer have to have a real patient coming, especially when you're teaching younger medical students or dentistry students. They can talk to a virtual patient. So you no longer need a patient. It reduces the carbon footprint of the patient coming to the university to help to teach our students, and so on and so forth. And of course, we have our UMHealth at virtual, which is with PPUM under Prof. Nazira doing virtual health to our patients. So we leverage on this that we are already doing. But we know there are issues and challenges. As mentioned by Prof. Shireen, we account for 4 to 5% of global emissions. It is ironic that we, in the business of saving patients, are killing the planet. So we're saving the patients now, but in the future, when there's no planet, we can forget about even saving patients. So we need to stand up and realize this is a problem. And a survey done by the FMSA showed that only 15% of medical school has a mention of climate change in the curriculum, and 12% of medical school worldwide has at least one student-led activity on climate change. Now, with what MQA says, this needs to turn to 100% actually, and that needs to happen. However, it is difficult. On top of all those challenges, can you imagine if you are from a low resource country, you have individual issues of ignorance and lack of urgency from your own people, for example. You know that organizationally there's going to be training and knowledge gaps. There's going to be culture and social barriers. There's going to be infrastructure and technological challenges, human resource limitation, money. There's going to be regulatory hurdles. There's going to be geographical, environmental factors that affects access to healthcare. And you know, if you are a country that is just surviving, how can you be looking at carbon neutrality? Because, like I said, we're killing the planet, but you still need to save the people now. And if that's what you're trying to do, you can't talk about sustainability. And of course, we know there's global health inequities. So what does this mean? There was a paper that was done. This is a very important paper, I think, that has looked at factors that are enabling, factors that are barriers, and factors that are solutions. So if you were to look at the reds, these are the barriers. The light blue are enablers. Solutions are in yellow and benefits are in black. I know it's a very busy slide. And this was done in UK. Now, what are enablers? Similar to Malaysia, GMC had said you need to include sustainability in the curriculum, similar to us. But what are the barriers? They realized that the educators lack knowledge, and there's resistance from the established science-based biomedical model. And in reality, some of the students are more knowledgeable than us, right? And we know this, our curriculum is already overcrowded. What do we take out? Do we overburden the student? That's not going to work, right? So, but they have, this particular author has set out solutions. You need to embed it as a core theme, sustainability. And if your students are knowledgeable compared to educators, we train both. So have a dual teach and learn culture. You need to embed determinants of health in exams. And of course, collaborate and share learning resources. And this is where something beautiful had come in, because when people talk about sustainability, they are very happy to collaborate and share. And these are free. These are free tools. And you are able to look at this and learn from this and use it. For example, Doctors for Environment in Australia has mapped out how you can embed sustainability in the curriculum. Okay, they give two examples. I've chosen two examples. How does climate change impact respiratory health? And they've given the postulation. Heat stroke, and cerebrovascular disorder. They have given the postulation on how this occur. So this makes it easier for you to embed it in your curriculum. Yeah. But as I mentioned, when we look at this, we know that there are barriers. We know this is difficult. So do we not do it? I think collectively we know the answer is no, we cannot. We have to do this. So how do you manage this? How do we do this so that we can still have sustainability and still manage it because of all the constraints that we have? So here I have implemented, I feel that these are some strategies that we need to look into. I think if you want to do this, when you want to put it in the healthcare curriculum, you need to identify the champions. Ina and Shireen and Nazira, these are our champions. Yeah, you create working committee, you have a call for action campaign. You need to assess what you have, your barriers and enablers, because going into it with your eyes wide open makes it much easier. So do a needs assessment, do survey, identify the gaps. You need to state your intent and know your priorities and goals. And that will allow the understanding of internal and external factors to ensure success by doing all these different tools that are available. Building capacity, training of future and current practitioners, that you equip them with sustainable skills by looking at the standards, ensuring learning platform, doing interprofessional education is very important. Review the policy and implement them. Make sure you have a supportive policy. Leverage on digital and green health technology. All universities have a learning management system. Leverage on that. Look for free, cost-friendly learning resources and employ them. Engage communities. When we say communities, not just outside, within our own collaborative practice community, because health community will be the role models, the mentor, and the coaches that will help us train the future next generation on sustainability. However, if we do all this, if it looks good on paper, you roll out the curriculum, in the end, if it just stays here in our next generation, it does no good, because what we need is for what is here to be felt here. We need to internalize in the heart. We need to internalize this. This is a process in we call enculturation. When you want to implement sustainability in healthcare, it is like implementing professionalism. The student will undergo to a place where they are unconsciously incompetent. They don't know what they don't know. They move to being consciously incompetent, and then they move to being consciously competent. But what we want is for them to be unconsciously competent, meaning that they will do it all the time. So how do we want to do this? There are certain methodology that you need to put that answers to the heart. This is a humanistic education that needs reflection and immersion. We need to use narrative medicine in planetary health. Make stories to make meaning. We need to show it from the lens of people most affected, meaning if you want to talk asthma, we talk to people suffering from asthma to tell our next generation their stories. And we must always use hope, the green leaves, as the leverage. We need to have collaborative learning, which is community-based learning and interprofessional education. And in the end, what happens is that they go out in the hospital, they go out in the clinical places, they will socialize. Within that community of practice, we have role modeling. When they see Prof. Shireen doing what she does, they get inspired, say, this is what I want to be. They look at situated learning, and we want them to be reflective practitioner, always thinking, what decision could I have made if I wanted to save this patient? Because I want it to be the best decision for the patient as well as the best decision for the planet. Because in the end, what we want is for the next generation practitioner be their own moral compass, where they choose sustainability and the patient's care, even when no one is watching. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Yang, for that inspiring, thought-provoking lecture on the role of medical education in instilling a sustainability mindset among future healthcare professionals. I think now we've arrived to the most exciting part of the morning, which is panel discussion. Before that, let us thank once again all the speakers for their rich insights. And I would like to encourage people on the floor and from the YouTube channel and from our online other participants to put in their question. So I open the floor. Any question from our live participant here? Yeah, that's one. Yes, Prof. Tengku Sarah.
Assalamualaikum. That's wonderful, and thank you very much for running this superb
Congress. I agree with Prof. Ina that preventative care is more eco-friendly than treatment, right? So shouldn't our whole focus like be more based on prevention rather? So we should increase the preventative care, reduce the other side. But anyway, I also wanted to ask Prof. Nazira, telemedicine is another thing which will be very, are we going to push forward with that? And also, any thoughts about rainwater reharvesting for the hospital as well? And actually, we are quite fortunate because I think Prof. Yang, your super boss, is also very eco-conscious. Our Vice Chancellor, I think, has the minute he stepped in, he put in a lot of measures which made my warmed my heart. I think that's all the questions I have, but I'm just wondering why it's so cold in here. That's not eco-friendly.
Thank you, Prof. Nugusara, for that question. Prof. Nazira, would like to answer that?
Thank you, Prof. Sarah. Three questions, I guess. So the first one about prevention. Yes, I think I totally agree with you that prevention is very important, and that was why I had it in my last slide, that prevention aspect of healthcare. And in our hospital, we have a unit under promosi kesihatan, health promotion unit under the public health department that specifically looks at health promotional efforts. And in the past 2 years, our staff health clinic has also been doing programs on improving the health literacy among our own staff. I think charity begins at home, and knowledge also must begin at home. And we have found that we are spending a lot on our own staff medical care. And then we realized that we have to improve the health literacy in our own in our own staff and through health promotion efforts. So that's number one. Number two, telemedicine, definitely. So as you know, we started telemedicine service in 2020 when COVID happened. And actually in December 2019, the head of the One Stop Diabetes Center unit was asked to do a presentation on starting telemedicine for diabetes care. So that was 2019 December. And so, what we needed to do was, since we have put in a proposal and we have discussed, what kind of platform that's required to do. So when COVID happened, it was a matter of rolling out. We thought it was just a matter of rolling out, but there were a lot of other issues that we needed to look at, looking at legal issues and things like that. However, we have overcome all that, and we have provided telemedicine platform for all our clinics in the hospital. If you remember, Prof. Sarah, at the start, I think we had a discussion on should it be a central telemedicine service, or should it be in each clinics. So what we did was we started with a decentralized setup, where at each of our clinic, there will be a few rooms that are fitted with telemedicine support service. But currently, we are in the process of setting up our own telehub, which is on the ground floor of Menara Utama. So that telehub will be a center for our centralized telemedicine service. So we are definitely going to expand this. And in addition, we are going to launch our virtual hospital, which will also be operating from this telehub. So this is, I believe, this is a crucial effort, from our side in trying to improve the patient experience, improve the patient journey, and at the same time, reducing carbon footprint. The third one, rainwater harvesting, we have in Menara Selatan. Yes. And so we are going to have that as well in the new outpatient complex that's being built. You all can see that. and the car park at at the top floor of the new building will have solar powered, will have roof for, what do you call it? Solar, no, I know, solar panels for harvesting. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, yeah, can I just add a little bit on that? First of all, he's not my boss, he's all of us, all of our boss. I just want to say that from Sarah. Um, Secondly, when you talk about the prevention, yes, I agree, but the problem is some of the diseases are because the climate. It is because of the climate what we're having now. Like when we talk about asthma and the allergens and we talk about heat stroke, it is because this is the planet we're living now. And that cannot be prevented anymore unless we reverse things, which are we able to reverse? Hmm. So while I would agree prevention is very important for the majority of us, but for those who are afflicted, and I think more and more people are going to get definitely heat stroke, heat. I think, and I think one of the things was they were talking about microplastics in our blood. I don't know. I think that's going to continue to cause health problems that we may not be able to change anymore, Prof. Thank you.
Yeah, I also add about prevention, because when we talk about prevention, there's primary prevention, which is, preventing someone from becoming sick, but there's the secondary prevention part where, those who are already sick or those who have chronic diseases, we need to look into the secondary prevention so that they do not become more sick and, ending up with disabilities and things like that. So when we talk about prevention, it's got to be, very wide.
Yeah, and I think through education, I truly believe that we can actually put this input to all our students on how, as a future healthcare professional, just like what Prof Young has just shown, that we can actually prevent this, either a first prevention or second prevention for our patient. We've got a couple of questions from online. The first one to all the panels. What are the most immediate or pressing challenges for transition to sustainable healthcare in various medical spheres can be realized in an efficient and just manner? What are the most immediate or pressing challenges for transition to sustainable healthcare in various medical spheres that can be realized in an efficient and just manner?
I'm gonna answer first because I'm gonna take this. Actually, stating the intent is the first thing. One thing to do it, stating the intent and having the commitment. Actually, that's the first thing. Easiest thing to do. Easiest thing. Once you have state the intent, you create your group that are your champions. They will look into all these things. You probably need a little bit of money to do it, as what Prof Nazira was saying, but some things, let's say the surgical tray rationalization, you may not need that much money. You just need committed people. But for your leadership to embrace this and state an intent, that's, I think, a big hurdle. Once you get that, then all the policies, the regulation, it will come. Because then when they feel this needs to be done, it will come. So to me, the first thing, get your leaders to state the intent and have that commitment. Just like our Datuk Sri Vice Chancellor. Thank you.
So, Prof Shireen, as the founding head, you want to share with us your steps towards this?
That is such a difficult question to answer, I have to say. So Prof Yang, you took the first thing, please. Okay, so just trying to wrap my head around it, because I think this person's trying to ask, so what do we start with first, basically, right? So once we've got that core group, the medical healthcare complex is such a huge one. And so many areas need to be dealt with actually simultaneously, right? I mean, you touched on it, but the other one. For me, what I want actually is we need a way to measure. I don't know whether ACCA person over here can help us measure, right? We need to measure, because if we don't measure, we have nothing to present. We have nothing to work on and nothing to benchmark and show improvement. And in fact, this whole journey started with measurement. When my medical students measured the waste generated in operating theatre, when my medical students measured the water wasted during each scrub cycle, and I think Prof. Nazira, that made us sit up, right? Wow, that's how much we're wasting, and that's how much we could be saving. And we're talking about resource efficiency already. We're not even talking about spending money, isn't it? I mean, saving water is saving money, saving resources. And you're not spending money on that. So we at the end of the day, we have to start with data. But I think it needs to move down. But no data, cannot move down to heart, right? So we need that data in our head. And that's for me, that's my focus at the moment, getting the data.
So just to follow on that, what metrics do you think matter the most? Which data would you like us to measure to sustain in healthcare
I
or
think-
sustainable in healthcare?
Yeah. So I think on a hospital level or a faculty level, right, a complex level, we need that carbon data calculation. We need ways to measure all scopes, 1, 2, and 3. And there are tools that are available to do that. We just need the HR and the manpower to do that. So we need that overall perspective. And then we can look at the overall perspective and then see, okay, we start off with the low-hanging fruit first, because I think if we aim too high, people immediately say, cannot do, just lie down, be depressed, right? We need to, once we have that overall data, we then look at, okay, where are we going to get our biggest gains first? Something that is, something people can see, right? Because if something is very theoretical, they can't see it, they don't see the relevance in their own practice, they're not going to do it either, right? So in fact, we are kind of moving in tandem with many of the initiatives in the university, which is very helpful for us, because then immediately we've got that zero single-use plastics, and that's across the board, right? No need to fight about it. That's one, right? So tangible differences at ground level. But I think also decision makers need to have that overall view, right? They need to have that 5, 10, 20-year strategy. So what's going to be an immediate gain now, but then what we need to put in place the planning for what needs to happen in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, Prof. Yeah.
And I think another first step that you do is actually education. Now, I get what Shireen is saying, that if you are not practicing it, how can you be talking about it? But sometimes education, you know that we teach our students on a lot of core foundation knowledge and philosophies, and those are the baseline. And you can use examples of other places that have done that successfully, even though your place do not have it. Because you know why? You're trying to grow the leaves. Even if you can't do it within your lifetime, the leaves, which are your hope and your legacy, they are armed with that knowledge, and they will want to make it better. So I think education is something that you should utilize now, because that builds that root and the foundation for the leaves to then go do better things in future when you are more ready or you have the resources. So I would say education. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's education. Some of us will be thinking, oh, I'm not an educationist. How could I educate? But I think we should believe, all of us here, we should walk our talk, Lead by example. That's the easiest. Start from small, climb up, lead, even if it's only to your household. I'm a true believer. I start at home, and I'm very happy to say it's flourishing to the hospital now. We've got one question from our dear gentleman over here. Yes, sir. Would you like to?
Good morning. Assalamualaikum. I'm really impressed with what you have achieved so far in the discussion by the panel. It's really, I'm very encouraged from the perspective of Climate Governance Malaysia Board There are a few points there. I think you touch on almost everything in your specialty. The Prof. Young analogy of the leaves is very appropriate because the leaves actually capture carbon dioxide and emits oxygen. Excellent example. But you also have the right point because what you are trying to do, I commend you. But we have to go one step back or back a few more years before students come here as an undergraduate. The whole structure of our education system needs to be reviewed because it starts from young. When you start education, if we start the idea of climate change, sustainability from year one, from school, develop a habit and understanding and appreciate the environment. Because to me, the environment is very important for them. Not here in the city, in the Ivory Tower. Where they are born, where they go to primary school, pedagogic school. To teach them to understand nature, where they can identify themselves much better and easier to visualize. Because they live in the environment. So we teach them that, and hopefully, I don't think so, it will actually become, they will grow up to be responsible adults and member of the community. Not to betray my generation, I grew up in a time where we actually live with nature. We appreciate nature. We don't depend on it. We depend and defend the nature. We defend the rivers, the trees, the jungles. We extract what we need, but we don't destroy. That's a problem. So I think we have to step back, many years back, to review our education system, to teach and impart and instill the love for nature, love for environment from the year one in school. Because at your time, at this level now, is trying to remedy. It's too late and it's taking a lot of effort and the cost is extremely high. So we have to divert resources that we have, limited resources, where we channel to where we need most, where you get the most effective outcome. So we have to review our thinking. What you're doing is commendable, but as you said, trying to cure things is very costly. So what Prof says, we have to relook the whole thing. So that's my take. And changing the problem with climate change and effects now is the mindset. We've been talking about climate change we are coming to next 30 COPs. The last good one was the pledges we make, the targets we want to achieve was in Paris. But we keep talking, we have not changed any mindset. So unless we change mindset, I think with 2030 will come past, 2050 will come past, and we'll all be boiling and losing our skin because of the heat. But this is a fact we have, a reality we have to face and admit. We are at fault. Our generation is at fault. Because we fail to actually take action when it's needed most. So let's walk the talk. Reduce the talking, walk more. And I come to the point there, and say that preventive medicine. Prof. Young said it's all consequential because of climate change. But we have also to see, we have Mother Nature starts, when we are born, mothers know, we develop immunity transferred from mother to a child. That immunity we can develop. We can do proper exercise, physical training, more in the field, consume better food, not processed food that we have today. McDonald's or this is all bad, but we still do it for convenience because parents have no time to cook. Of course, now mothers work. I understand they have to work, but we don't spend time to look at our children. So we have lost our immunity when we don't develop immunity. So we are prone to more sickness. The food we consume, we are the highest in Asia, obesity and diabetes. Why? Is all these are controllable? Why are we not doing it? You expect the politicians to come with policy. They can't help you. They can give you a policy, raise the price of sugar, but when they raise the price of sugar, people complain. Why are we complaining? So we don't adopt all this. We are aware of the sciences. We know the problem. Yet we are just like ostriches, our heads in the sand. So ask yourself, each one of you, ask yourself, what are we doing? So let's become enablers, move out. The university produce 5,000 graduates almost every year. So use them as warriors so that make sure that enable, equip them so they can go out and preach, outreach to the people who come. Not just here, not just the community, not just the campus, out when you go out there. When they become leaders, they can convince more. So the multiplying effect is tremendous. But it can be done. But resolve, what to have some resolution. So I think I said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Tunku Datuk Paduka Jaafar Laksmana Tunku Nong, for that in-depth analysis and advice to all of us. I have to say, we actually in Faculty of Medicine, UMHealth Malaya, we are looking into making our student the agent of change. We are indeed integrating this into our education, and we hope when they graduate and goes to the public, they will be our agent of change. Right. Before, if there's no other question at the moment, I'd like to address a question to Mr. Graham Rice. I've been approached by many times by a few industrial companies that they want to participate and collaborate with our society anesthesia, because we actually promote this since 2023, as Prof. Nazira reminded me just now. They wanted to do collaboration on how to practice sustainability with us. Do you want to share your experience, how to start? Where can they all come in with the healthcare industry with this?
Yeah, thanks for the question. A couple of things come to my mind. Firstly, from our point of view, it's understanding how our products and services get used in your applications, and to collaborate in those discussions just opens everybody's eyes in terms of what you use our products and services for, and how that can lead to better healthcare solutions, and also from a sustainability point of view, what might be things that we can do. So for me, it's the process of sharing how we make things and how we design things and how they get used in your applications. So that's where the shared learning comes from. And if we focus around sustainable solutions, then if that's the focus of the discussion, then we approach it with, with a particular focus around those particular topics. And that's all part of opening our eyes, creating a common understanding of green healthcare and what that vision really means. So we welcome those opportunities.
But as Prof. Shireen alluded to us early on, the market is very industry driven, and it's a money-making industry. Healthcare is, isn't it? It's a money-making industry. There's a lot of companies out there actually are saying it up to us to use disposable, which is really not a sustainable practice. How do you think we should overcome this? Any suggestion?
Yeah.
What can we do?
It comes back to some of the earlier conversation. What is driving us? Is it policy? Is it management commitment? Is it the voice of the customer? Is it the voice of the patients? What are the pressures around that decision making? So for me, it touches on all of those. What is the direction that we want to go in? So if we want to reduce single-use devices and promote more reusable devices and more circularity, is that a management decision? Is it a hospital policy decision? We need to be clear on what's driving it, because if it's only cost for a single surgery, then it's not the full picture. So I think we have to be prepared to explore, both from a policy point of view, the management philosophy, as well as the customer and the patient and also the whole supply chain in that discussion.
Yeah, and on top of that, patient safety is
Of course,
paramount.
it starts there. Yeah.
Yes, Patricia.
Yeah, if I may add also, so I want to reassure many of the attendees who may not be in healthcare that we're not asking you to share someone's needle or share someone's syringe, because I think that when I have conversations with my friends who are outside the sector, they say, I don't want to share this thing with another patient. It's not safe for me, right? What's the risk of infection? So we're not talking about that level. We're talking about many other things that are reusable, but always bearing patient safety in mind. So that's not something that we would compromise. And one example is, for instance, in the operating theater, we use the surgical gowns, right? I think everyone's familiar with surgical gowns. So surgical gowns have to be waterproof because you don't want blood contamination from the patient to the surgeon, and vice versa. You don't want micro-contamination from the surgeon to the patient as well. So they have to be waterproof. And because in previous years, the cloth used for textiles is not waterproof, we shifted, right? So in UMC, they're all waterproof, but they're all single-use waterproof because that's the only product that was available. But actually, innovation and research helps us here. So they're now reusable, waterproof textiles that we can actually shift our procurement to. So we need to understand the reason underlying that position, as Mr. Graham said, we need to understand the reason, and then we solve that problem, right? So that's one example.
Great. So Prof. Nazira, it's really top-down. A lot of it is top-down decision, right? On they might ask us as end user.
I was going to ask a question, but I'm happy to finish.
Okay, just let me finish this question and we'll then let you to the next question. Sorry. So, I lost my thoughts there. So, Prof. Nazira, it's a lot top down, isn't it? As end user, we are asked, what do you want? And then we can say, okay, we would love to have this, but at the end of the day, it's the money matters, you know. And then the decision goes back to the top management. How do you feel that we could work? How would you make this inertia better?
Thanks for the question. It's not exactly 100% top-down. I mean, many of our initiatives are done through, discussions as well as engagements with those on the ground. And we are very, very lucky because, many of the initiatives that I've shared today are actually work of people at the ground level. So maybe, when we banned plastic from the hospital, that came from top down. But the rest of the initiatives are actually coming at the department level and the users themselves. And so for us at the top management, what we need to do is we need to help to facilitate, and we need to help drive it through and also expand these efforts. So for me, I think a top-down approach may not work if you cannot get the buy-in from people at the ground, and it must come from the heart as well. Prof. Yang said, it must touch the heart for people who want to do this. And we are very lucky that we've got very passionate people on the ground. But they need help with direction. And so we are here to help with the direction. And so with the drivers that we have here, such as yourself and Prof. Shireen, and also from the faculty side, I think it is our responsibility to help direct these initiatives, to help prioritize and to look at how we are going to move forward. We keep talking about, we do the low-hanging fruits, etc. So these are the easy ones that we think that we can do. But for us to be successful, for us to have, 5 years, 10 years down the line, we need to have a strategy in doing this. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Nazira, for that explanation. I'd like to open the question to the floor to the gentleman in brown.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to introduce yourself, sir, to all of us?
My name is Sharat Martin. I'm with ACCA. I guess I'm also, if you're not familiar with ACCA, it's an accountancy brand, but who cares? I'm also a trustee with WWF, so I have a very big concern over nature. I'm also your scope 3. Because now I don't feel so bad about my Grab and driving because I used asthma inhalers. And after hearing what Shireen said, I'm more worried about that. My question or maybe comment, because I'm hearing you today and there's a lot that is about what you all are doing. I guess my concern is at the industry level. You've alluded to a lot of these things, the social side of things, so I don't want to go over that. My question is there collaboration at the industry level with other industries? And maybe let me give you some examples. So if the construction industry will have workers working in temperatures and in extreme UV conditions, that's going to affect you. That's going to affect us because you may have to prioritize other people instead of people with asthma, for example. I'm just being facetious here, but you get my point. COVID was a good example because you had to prioritize certain things, others got deprioritized. COVID is also an example that in extreme situations, we don't have the institutional capacity to deal with anything, right? So construction industry is just one example. The other example is the plastics that you all talk about. There's a recycle industry going on in response to climate change. But that very same industry is going to cause a health problem. So I'm asking whether there is a top-level discussion at the ministerial level, at the policy level, to identify and point out these harms and work it down so that whichever ministry and whichever government department will understand, you know what, we got to be careful about this recycling industry or construction industry. Don't come and tell me you have shortage of workers when you treat your workers this way and they're going back to their country with a whole bunch of diseases. And that's what they will tell the people, don't come to Malaysia. My one other comment is something that you raised about how do we deal with some of these issues which are coming, say, from suppliers, etc., right? And because of the work that I do, I'm beginning to get a little, okay, let me not express it negatively. Let me try and do it positively. I think Asian economies, Asian businesses must learn to flex because we are a very important part of the value chain. If, for example, you take somewhere I used to work in, which is the palm oil industry, do you know where we make our equipment? We make it in the Nordic countries for a product that is pressed and milled in Malaysia for decades. Why won't we invest in R&D? Because it's cheaper to just get it there. But meanwhile, we forego the whole knowledge and competitive advantage that can come. Why am I raising this again in the context of what you said? Because sometimes we don't flex our ability, and I'm using a word flex here, not, I should have corrected myself here, in the way her generation may understand the word flex. Our children will understand the word flex, which is to use our capacity to go back and say, look, we are a very major consumer. You need to listen. And I think they will, as evidence from here, they will. But we tend to fall short because we have this mindset and mentality that we've always been takers. We've never been people who push back. So I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious of time. But my question is really coming back to where is that top level engagement to push down and have this. And one last thing, just to make you all feel good. You have it in your curriculum. I come from an industry where we don't put it in the curriculum yet. So well done.
Thank you, sir, for that comment. And any of our panelists would like to take the, yeah, please, Bryce.
I would just like to comment on an observation, if you like, from industry. Recently, we've focused a lot. I'm focusing a lot of my attention on waste and circularity as a topic that I want to understand and learn. about how that might apply in our sector, from what we do as a manufacturing company or medical device company, and also how it plays in my studies, if you like, if I can say it like that, in my observations, you realize quite fast that we're behind. So in terms of collaboration, I think there's a lot to learn from my point of view. If I look to the automotive industry, for example, there is already a lot of fantastic work that has taken place. So at that level, I do think that we should recognize that the healthcare sector is behind, but that's just the way it is. And recognize where we can calibrate ourselves and benchmark and what we can learn from other sectors. In terms of flexibility, sure, I agree. I mean, I spent a long time in Malaysia. I come from North London, manufacturing in North London, transferring manufacturing to Malaysia, and I've observed big flexibilities in global supply chains. And I think we have to learn how to be more agile with different circumstances. But I
just
also
to correct that flex doesn't mean flexibility, Graham. We will ask Shireen what flex means. It's your flexing of muscles is to show your strength and tell others you need support.
Yeah. 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 But I also comment that we have a lot of influence between us. So we've got to be focused on where we want to use your word flex, where we want to focus and what we can really do. So to me, we can't solve everything at once, but we can be focused.
May I also answer? And I'm going to state right now, I'm going to leave the question about does ministry have it, right? Because that's way above my pay grade. I'll leave that to my two bosses over there. But I strongly believe that one of the things that we're aiming at is when we increase in awareness and knowledge amongst healthcare professionals, we are empowering the consumer. We are consumers, right? And if we don't understand that impact that we are having, we can't then make our decisions based on and using our power as a consumer. For example, that instrument that I showed, it's a beautiful piece of instrument, so beautifully designed. You can imagine all the work that went to it, where all the parts came from, and it's designed for single use. So the power as us as consumers is, you know what, I'm not going to buy it. As a surgeon, I'm going to say, I'm not going to buy it. And hopefully I can influence our entire operating theatre in our hospital not to buy it. We're the second largest hospital in Malaysia, right? And as an academic hospital, while we sometimes complain about it, we actually have a credibility that many people do not have in stating this is this is a choice we're making as a consumer. Now, working with industry, it is kind of I think, a love-hate relationship sometimes, right? But it was actually very enlightening for me to work with Lebron. Now, as you say, Mr. Graham, we are not solving all the problems at once. And I think one thing comes to mind is, for example, this hand hygiene bottle that we use. We use thousands of bottles per month. We're trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to use it, because it goes into recycling, which is good. I mean, at least it goes to recycling, but it comes all the way from Germany, right? So there's that life cycle as well. We can't solve everything, but if we at least start addressing some of these things, we're making progress.
I'm just going to talk about the flexing because I think in terms of ministry also, I'm going to leave it to Nazira to answer. All I can say is, at least in education, in terms of if NQA has put it to be mandated in the standard. So I think that is a clear direction about how Ministry of Education at least wants this to happen. But I do not know whether they are starting from the schools, which I think they should. But as far as I know, in university at least, it's being put as a mandatory thing. But talking about flexing, I remembered during our launch, and our pro-chancellor mentioned that, you know, these plastic bottles, we should just tell all these people who are producing it to say, we don't want it anymore, full stop. I don't know. Is that reasonable? Is that feasible? Understanding that these plastic bottles also do create ability of hygiene right? So you need to, everything needs to be balanced. But when you said flags, I was reminded of that particular thing. Said we should just say no more in this country, no more plastic bottles, stop all production. Are we ready to do that? I'm not sure. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so
I
what
mean,
can I
it's
say?
also okay if you don't have an answer.
No, but I'd like to share, I don't have an answer definitely, but what I'd like to share here is, you know, when we first started out and I first approached Prof. Shireen, we started talking about this. And I think we spent a lot of time WhatsApping each other, and I tell her that I'm scared, this is treading into uncharted waters, things that I don't quite understand, things that I'm learning. And, so for me, and I believe there are many people like me as well. But we want to change, and we want to do better, and we want to save the planet. We want to save, we want to save our patients. But how do we do this? So number one, stating the intent. So that's number one. And then strategizing on how to do this. In my slides, I put in partnering and innovative partnerships, having innovative partnerships. And I think this is something that we need to work towards, and finding partners that we can work with. And research and innovation. I think this is something that we've not really been looking at seriously. So this is should be part of our initiative and our strategies, and getting the buy-in from the people out there. Okay, so we have university supporting us. We have Sustainability, and they support us with resources and things like that. But beyond university, who can support us? Who can be our reference points? And so we know that the ministry is they're trying to do something, like Minister of Higher Education, the PSU, unfortunately he has retired. But 2 months before he retired, he called up for a meeting and said that, okay, PPM, we should be the pilot in championing sustainability practices. So yes, there is something coming from the ministry, but I must say that I don't see it being not prioritized. There's no I don't see, yeah.
Clear direction.
So again, the intent is there, but the planning is not quite there yet. So and
No
so
light at the end of the tunnel yet.
And because of that, I think we cannot wait, because if we wait, like what Yang Mulia Tunku Dato said just now, we have wasted years and years, because we didn't care. We've been waiting for other people to do it. Yeah. So I think here we are. I think we should state our intent here, that our intent is not just an intent, that we will be championing this and we'll be driving this. We can't wait for the ministry to tell us what to do.
If I can just add one more quick thing, we want to add a sustainability component into our procurement process, right? So that is our intent. Now, of course, the nitty-gritty, how much weightage do we give it? How do we even measure that weightage? And is going to be different for each of the procurement processes? Is it going to be different in pharmacy versus in surgery, for example, right? But that's definitely one of those things that we want to look at.
That's a flex.
So can I comment on that as a procurement guy? We actually have introduced sustainability weighting in our supply selection process. So we come from a couple of years experience. We put 10% as a start point. We do it, but I'm trying to find those examples where we really differentiate. So we're applying that slowly to start with. And I think there's a very big carrot and stick on that topic. So I love to have more discussion around it, because if you're going to include it, there has to be a reward for it. So prepared to invest, but it comes with a commitment from the customer side. So it needs that both-way commitment. That's my comment.
All right, Datuk Yang Mulia, Datuk Peraka. Yeah.
Sorry, Shireen, whatever it is, if your weighting for finance, as in the cost, is higher than sustainability, then your weighting is wrong, right? If your procurement criteria, you were talking about weighting. Yeah, the weightage. If the weightage for sustainability is lower than the weightage you put on cost, then you got it wrong.
Yes. As I look at it now, we need long-term strategy. We know the sciences, we know the problems, we know the solution. But what we lack is political leadership and political will. Because we are talking of 25, 30 years to 2015. But political leadership is very short term. They think in terms of 5 years, every cycle of election. So they cannot see or project or visualize the long-term effect. To them, after next election, it's no longer my problem. So we need now, how do we convince political masters to adopt a strategy that we stick on for the out years? Like we had long time ago, Vision 2020. It worked for a while until about 2018, it changed. Then we end up 2030. So that sort of thing is good for the politician, but it's bad for all of us, and bad for the planet. Now we need to do is, I'm happy to note that the middle level, like us all, we need to push back or push upwards to make sure that they understand the implications. Because the lower level, they don't understand. It's us at this level, we understand. Educated, academia, everything, in class, push back. Because we have to push back, we are besides being consumers, we also constituents. We vote for them. So we need to push back. And I think academia is the best place to do it because Ivory Towers thought we can think, we can plan, and push back. We need to push back and convince the ministers. Please, because without that, we can have this another 10 years talk and still see nothing. No long-term strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input. I know all of us are very excited to talk and discuss this longer, but I think we are aware of time. And as we come to a close, I'd like to thank all our speakers for their time and thought-provoking contributions. And to all of you who's been here throughout the last 2 hours plus, whether joining in person or online, for your commitment to making healthcare greener and more responsible. Let's take these ideas. Don't stop here. Take it back to our workplace, our hospital, classroom, industries, and change begins with us. We are the agent of change. No matter how small we think it would be, believe me, it matters. Once again, thank you, all of you, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the National Climate Governance Summit 2025. Let's give a round of applause to all the esteemed speakers and to all of us. We'd like to invite those who are in this room to have a picture taken together. And for attendance and feedback, please scan this QR code, and we'd like to listen and to hear your feedback. Thank you very much.
Okay, more sit. Yeah, nobody can sit. No, honestly. How will you sit? Because I don't think it's standing high. So those who can sit in front of you, yes. Yes. Thanks. Don't worry. No, 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 no. Ladies,